in a lot of organisations still today, they are stifled in their creativity. Unless you've got people like Bill Gates and a few other people like that who've always made space for those unusual people who join organisations, instead of dragging them to the centre and slotting them in, has like created space for them to be creative and think outside of the box and come up with new ideas and new solutions. And I think that's been not only detrimental to us in the long term, but also it's destroyed a lot of job satisfaction. You know, we often think jobs based around the prime mover, it might be about money or it might be whatever. Actually, that isn't what the thing that motivates most people. What they want to do is feel at the end of the day, they've been very much involved in doing something that's having a lasting effect. They got that when they were working the land, or they were doing their own cottage industries, or carpenters or whatever, or blacksmiths, but they lose that when they become part of the system. And there might be things that they can tick off as being successful, and they've just been part of the system in doing that. It's not come out of their own creativity. And to keep them in check in this Newtonian worldview, we've had a hierarchical construct and view of leadership. And that's been not only the prevailing order of leadership and philosophy that we've had that's come down over the last 300 years, actually predated the Industrial Revolution, the noble and the lord of the manor and the serfs and the servants, this hierarchical construct. And with this hierarchical construct, it's very much a delegation model, and it's based around do as I say. Now, as I say this, I'm going to upset some people because you're going to think, but I don't do that, I really pay more attention. I'm not talking about you and your individual adaptation of what you do. I'm talking about the structure that is generally in place. And these are the structures you'll see on websites, and you'll see it on boards where you've got pictures when you walk into a building, whether it's a community group, a faith group, a business. You have this hierarchical construct. And at the top of that, you have whatever the CEO is. And under the CEO, you might have some managers. It might be a couple, it might be many, many managers. And under the managers, you might have team leaders. And then under the team leaders, you have the service delivery people, and then the clients to whom they deliver the service, whether it's social services or in a bakery or selling motor cars, whatever it is. And how the system works is you get a flow of information that comes down from the CEO to the managers, from the managers to the team leaders, from the service delivery people, their teams, and out to the clients. And that assumes quite a lot. It assumes that the CEO or the managers know exactly what's needed for the client, the teams to actually deliver and work. I remember probably 35, my memory is pretty hopeless on dates, between 35 and 40 years ago, I was invited to go up to Vauxhall motor cars to look what they were doing, because Vauxhall realised that if you had a quadrant with the top 4 motor car manufacturers, they were nowhere near it. And I remember good old Vauxhalls, the Viva, HA and the HB and the Vector, that used to rust away before you got through your first MOT. They were pretty rubbish. So they brought in a change management team, and I was invited to go up and observe what they were doing. And what they realised is they had to change their structure, because the CEO probably only knows about 4% of what the people who are actually delivering the product have to deal with. Only about 4%, even if they've gone, he or she has gone up through the ranks. Things change, and they just don't know what's happening, what the real issues are for the people who are delivering, and therefore they don't know what the solutions are. But often they've got some idea, some concept, maybe read a book or whatever it is, or whatever it may be, and they start to push information down. The managers, they might know 7%, 10% of the real issues that have to be dealt with. The team leaders probably about 30%. But the people who are delivering it, the people who really know what the problems are and what could be changed, don't have any say in that process. And we probably all, I worked out the other day that I've been working full-time for 57 years. And so I've worked in a lot of different organisations and cultures. I've been at the bottom and somewhere up the scale. And I realised that some of the ideas that come your way, some of the things that you're told to do, they're explained to you by the team leader. And you're thinking, oh no, and this is another change and this isn't going to work. And the team leader is interested to get feedback, but one or two people might make a comment, the rest don't. And then when the team leader goes away and thinks, so that's successfully delivered, you go away in 2s and 3s and all have a moan and a complain about it. That'll never work. Why don't they think about this and what about that and how am I going to do this? And so we've missed that kind of opportunity to learn from the people who are delivering, because we've got this hierarchical construct. And the hierarchical construct really depends upon one thing to keep people in control and make sure they work correctly. It's a stick. Punitive, it's punishment. And then somewhere along the line, we had trade unions come onto the scene. And trade unions, instead of coming along with an attitude of the big stick, they said, they're very liberal in their thinking, let's give people what they want. And if we give them what they want, then they'll work better, then they'll have more job satisfaction and everything will improve. And so we ended up with not only the stick, but the carrot. And we've worked with that carrot and stick principle, really, most of our lives. And with that carrot and stick principle, we're assuming, again, that either fear or giving some reward is the primary motivator. It isn't. I'm amazed when I was typing these notes up the other day, I'm amazed at how many programs are on the TV now about people escaping the rat race, the high-paid jobs, and going back and getting a little small holding and working in the land and doing all that. And when I watch them, I think, oh, that must be so nice to get away from the carrot and stick and just to be able to be creative and do your own thing. And at the end of the day, you can see something that you've done and have real job satisfaction rather than being part of the big scene. So what we need to do is have a paradigm shift, and I need to keep a check on my watch because I've got a microphone and some ears and I can talk for hours when I've got that, which is a kind of classic introvert, hopeless at small talk, but give me some willing ears and I'll just chat forever. And what we need as this paradigm shift, in my opinion, is a new understanding, a new scientific understanding of how creation works, and a new understanding of leadership and management and motivation. And so we bring together quantum theory and restorative practices. Now, I'm no scientist, but I try to learn about things that I think are relevant to my sphere of life. And last week, there's a few of us from here who were at a gig at the Lord Mayor's Parlour, and Aaron was there, and we were stood chatting together. And as we were chatting, a friend or colleague of his came in, who, when he introduced himself as a cosmologist, and he said, sorry?
Physicist, he's very particular.
Oh, okay. You introduced him as a cosmologist, and he corrected that. And he said, I'm very particularly interested in quantum theory. And I said, well, so am I, because the work I'm doing, particularly in the area of restorative, ties in with the fundamental concepts of quantum theory. And there are so many similarities. I know he kind of looked at a little bit of amazement. Then he said, if I remember right, the three of us need to get together maybe and have a chat and discuss some of those things. And the reason there's a similarity and the reason that this quantum theory fits in with restorative practices as opposed to the Newtonian worldview of levers and cogs is that the very fundamental of quantum theory, and are there any people who study quantum theory here? Huh? Oh no, I was hoping it was no. Don't correct me then. Don't shout out rubbish. But the very basis of quantum theory is how atoms interact, the building blocks of everything in creation. And specifically, what happens inside an atom. And inside an atom, 90-odd%, I think it's about 99% of an atom is space. There's nothing there, but inside that, there are electrons and protons. And the way that electrons in this space interact with each other when they connect and make an interaction affects everything that comes out of the building blocks of creation, that interaction. And I said to him, just as atoms have a safe space where you can have this interaction that creates all this wonderful stuff, so restorative practices works on creating a safe space where people can come and interact together, and out of that you get all this wonderful creativity. And that's what restorative is about. It's about facilitating that creativity. But to create that, and we'll be looking at how we do that a little bit, like I say, this is not a training session, it's just to whet your appetite, hopefully. As leaders and influencers, we also have to move from this post-industrial model of hierarchical constructs into a restorative model. And we've got to move away from do as I say to a model that says, what can I do to you to empower you? So what we do is reverse the pyramid. Now, you may think in your workplace, no way can you do that because the pyramid's all to do with pay grades and scales and all that. And if you said to whoever your bosses are, we're going to reverse the pyramid, he would probably think you've gone a bit doolally. But you can reverse the pyramid in the way you work and the way you operate. No matter what the wall charts or the website says, you can reverse the pyramid. And so with this reversed upside down pyramid, we create a culture of high accountability and low control, because what we do is if you are the person who I've got there as a CEO, the CEO would meet with his or her managers. You could do it individually, but always it's better to meet in groups and in this safe culture, this circling culture that we'll touch on. And you'd say to those people, what do you need? What problems are you facing? What are you dealing with? What can I do to help you? Or, as we interact together, what can we do to help each other? What ideas can we come up with that enable us to help you to be the best you can be? And then those managers would do that with their team leaders and meet with them in what we call a restorative circle. You might call it a learning circle. We call them restorative circles. What issues are you facing? What are you dealing with? What can I do to empower you and help you? What do you need? They would meet with their teams in exactly the same way in a restorative circle. Let's be open and honest, talk about the issues, talk about the problems, talk about what we're failing at, talk about the ideas, and together let's brainstorm, let's talk it through and see what solutions we come up with. And so you're actually empowering the people who are actually delivering. Vauxhall Motors, their major paradigm shift was to see that the most important people in the organisation were not the CEOs, the accountants, the designers, they were the people who actually made the motor cars. Same if you're running a bakery. The most important person, or a chef, is the chef or the baker who actually produces the product. And this is what you do here, is you move away from thinking that the workforce are all right, cogs or commodities that help us to achieve our goals. You move away from that and say the workforce are the people who will make all this happen and we're here to serve them. And I read a quote once, I think it was from Eleanor Roosevelt, the American president's wife, and she said, a good leader can inspire people to have confidence in him or her. And that's true. A great leader will inspire people to have confidence in themselves. And when you have this sort of interaction, and when people are meeting and talking in teams like that, the team leaders have been picking up information that's really important to help productivity, to help delivery to be better. Then when the team leaders talk to their managers about the issues they're facing, they're bringing back some of that information from the teams. And when the managers meet with the CEO, they bring in that information back. So the real information is coming back. And I always used to say, when I'm talking to people in workplaces, when you're at that point when you've had some missive that's come down from on high, and you see all these flaws in it, don't feed that back up to the boss. Don't feed back to the boss all the flaws. Feed up to the boss the solution. Say, we've looked at this. The team leader can go back to the manager. We've talked about this with the team, and they've highlighted several things we hadn't thought of, how it's going to impact this or it's going to impact that. But they've come up with these solutions and suggestions, because that's what managers and bosses want to hear, isn't it? You want people to come back with the truth, but with solutions and answers. This really works that way. In doing that, there's always this thing of restorative circles. And restorative circles are where we get people together in a group around whatever it may be. And we don't have a hierarchical construct. We have a group of equals. And the skills in making these restorative circles work. They don't work straightforward. They're nothing like the normal business meetings where you have an agenda and somebody sets the agenda, then asks for comments, which you get very few, which are usually negative anyway. This works in a totally different way, where you look at things and people can come up and be creative with ideas and solutions. They can talk how it's going to affect them, how it's going to affect others, and you get out of that such a positive outcome. Later on, I'm going to ask, I'm not sure if you remember me saying this, Lisa, ask Lisa just to give an illustration of how this has been working with a project she's engaged Steve and myself to work with down in Old Portsmouth. But it's really, really good. And you empower people and you get problem solving out of that. You get conflict resolution. If there's conflict, happens in the circle. It doesn't have to go out to HR. You get peer-to-peer support. And at the same meeting that Aaron and Steve and I were at last Thursday in the Lord Mayor's Parlour, I also met with somebody who works from one of the large institutions in the city. I won't say which one, but it's represented here. And I did some restorative work with this manager a few years ago. It was initially in a conflict situation. Then it moved on to training her team in restorative practices. And that helped to resolve a major team issue that she had, just by giving her the skills and the team to have these restorative circles and meetings of equals. Then I did some, at her boss's request, some training with her peer managers. And as I'm doing this meeting with their peer managers in this safe environment in a restorative way, all sorts of stuff started to arise where people were really upset and not valued and were thinking of leaving. And so instead of it being a training session, it became, let's put it in practice, a restorative learning circle, a meeting where together you can find the solutions. And we did that. And when I saw her at this breakfast thing, she said to me, I asked how things were going. She said, my team works great. We still do learning circles, restorative circles all the time. But the peer thing is absolutely fantastic. We meet every month and they're all still there, and it had really transformed them, having that learning circle approach. So there was a thing that Google did a while ago when they did a research on all of their teams worldwide to see what were the most key characteristics of the best teams. And they were taking into everything. You could be living in California on, $5,000 a month wages, or you could be in India sweeping and cleaning the factories or whatever it may be. And what they discovered after this worldwide survey, the two characteristics that made the best teams: everybody had a chance to speak with equal value and an equal term, equal time, in a respectful social way, not a too structured way, and everybody had a higher sense of social awareness of other people's in the team. That's what these circles actually bring in your team. But another foundational thing, if you're going to be a restorative leader, of saying, I'm about empowering, is the social discipline window. A lot of you have probably heard this. How many people have heard of the social discipline window? Okay, certainly everybody has been on restorative training because we cover that in some depth. But in this social discipline window, there's these axes of challenge or support. And if we're dealing with people and we work in the bottom axis where we're low on challenge and low on support, it's called the not window. It's very neglectful. People have got issues, they've got problems. You say, oh, never mind, carry on, or don't worry about that, it'll soon pass. That kind of neglectful approach. If we work with people in a high challenge, where we're setting limits but low support, it becomes very stressful, and we call it the two window. And this is what you need to do. You need to do this and you need to do that, or you need to say you're sorry, or you need to change this. That's very stressful if they don't have the skills and the ability to do that. And it feels very punitive. Oh, on top of the other problems, another problem now. If we work with them with a lot of support but no challenge, it's called the four window. And that's where we say, would it help if I do this for you? All right, don't worry, I'll sort that out and I'll do it for you. Sounds very nice, but they don't learn anything from that. It just puts more stress on you as a leader or a manager. But if we work in that top window in the right-hand corner, where we are challenging people to find the solutions and come up with the answers and bring about change, but we give them all the support, what can I do for you to help you in this? It's called the with window. And all growth takes place in that quadrant. Whether it's physical or emotional or psychological growth, that's where it takes place. When you have a child who's totally helpless, a baby who you've got to do everything to or for, they will never grow unless you start to challenge them. First, how to use the potty, say, and you spend time and you're on your knees with them and all that. You keep doing it till they've learned how to use the potty. Then you give them another challenge of getting food in the mouth and not in the rear or on the head or over, and you work with them. As a leader, a supporter, you challenge them and you support them, and they grow. And then they go to school and they get all that sort of stuff over and over again. Then they go into the workplace, and a good workplace is where you're challenging people, stretching them, but you're giving them all the support. And all growth starts there. And in psychology, they talk about the legitimate pain of problem solving, which causes growth. That's a legitimate pain of problem solving. And it's the same if you go to the gym. If you want to grow your muscles, you're going to have to be challenged and you're going to need support to do it. And if you don't face the pain of that, you don't grow. You don't grow. And that's where growth comes. And so a restorative leader always thinks of this. Unfortunately, most leadership works in the 2 or the 4 quadrants. You do this, or I'll do it for you because I haven't got the time to waste on doing this. And we have to move into that 2 quadrant, the with quadrant. This is foundational. Now, sometimes in leadership, you have got to work in the 2 or the 4 quadrant. For instance, if the fire alarms go off today, we can't say, let's have a restorative circle to decide what we're going to do. I, as the host in this building, will tell you what to do. You know, get up, leave your bags, go through that door, cross the road, wait on the other side of the road, and we'll come off and check off. And sometimes you've got to do 4 if you're a leader. You don't want to have a circle time to discuss how much pay somebody's getting this month, how many hours they've done. You do them for them. But most of the time, we should always try to be working in the with quadrant. What I would say is that restorative practices will solve HR issues, collaboration in solving team or department problems, share and discuss ideas and future plans, communal learning, best practices are shared, resolving departmental problems, great for lone workers. And the circle outcomes, we share the decision making, takes so much pressure off you as a leader. It reduces the risk of unforeseen problems, creates a culture of high accountability, low control, better communication, better relationships, less sick time, fewer problems, strengthens corporate team and identity, etc., etc. You can have all of that if you want some training and a bit more on those things. And so there is training on offer. What I want to do is just invite Steve to come up, and Lisa, would you come up? Are you willing to just do that? And I just want to ask you a couple of questions.
Hello. My name's Lisa Wills. I work in the strategy unit at the council, and I've worked at the council for about 23 years. Started off in housing, worked with Eddie Stray over there, worked with other people, maybe not. But I've known these guys for a long, long time. They've set up their mediation service, which is now called PMS. And last year, I commissioned them to do some work in Old Portsmouth. One of my responsibilities is around community safety and the community safety strategy and the work that we do to reduce crime and such behaviour and offending in the city. And there had been a perennial problem in Old Portsmouth with young kids coming down, pissing people off, and causing a problem basically, and the police and the community wardens were getting called out all the time by residents down there. And it had been going on for quite a long time. There was a bit of a peak in 2019, which caused quite a lot of problems down there and problems with the police. So we thought we'd try a different approach rather than an enforcement approach. We thought we'd try a restorative approach in Old Portsmouth. So about a year ago, Steve started hanging around in Old Portsmouth, talking to anybody who'll listen to him, and pulled them into a meeting, which is now a group, and it's called the Camber Dock and Hot Walls Restorative Support Group. Catchy title, can't find an acronym for that. And we meet twice a month now. Sorry, every 2 weeks, twice a month, very different. We have used a talking stick, so a restorative facilitated meeting. Yeah, well, I was very out of my comfort zone because I would normally take responsibility for chairing, for the agenda, for the notes, and actually it was really weird to be in that situation with John facilitating. And anybody who knows me keeps a talking stick in their back pocket. So they just give it to me and just shut up. And I think Steve's probably the same. But actually what happened was just miraculous. It was amazing. Lots of, people just came forward and said things and committed to do things. We were all equal. It was really important that the residents felt that they weren't being told to do stuff, that they were in charge of what was going on, and actually that way of working in a meeting was really, really valuable because everybody was equal. The other thing it does is it stops you from responding from the hip. Because we all be going, ask me, I've got something to say. And actually you don't get the ball or the talking stick until someone's ready to give it to you, and by the time they're ready to give it to you, you've calmed down a bit, and it's all a little bit easier, and maybe someone else has said what you want to say, and it just makes things work really, really well. I mean, it's not the answer to everything, but it really, really helps.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. You might have to come back and answer questions later. Steve. Steve. Yeah. Use that mic because there's another thing picking up for the camera there. So just tell me what difference Restorative's made in your organisation with regards to the team and learning circles, and also with regards to your role as a leader who's been in management many, many years.
So just to talk about circles in terms of Portsmouth Mediation Service, since 2015, pretty much the day I arrived at Portsmouth Mediation Service, just for 3 months to look after it, funny enough. But we've had a weekly team meeting. I can count on my hand the times we've missed having a weekly team meeting on a Wednesday. Before lockdown, that was always in offices here, face to face. Since lockdown, we've closed our offices, we work remotely, and we have three Zoom meetings, online meetings, weekly meetings a month, and one face-to-face meeting. Everybody sits round in a circle, and there is no agenda, no minute taking. Just everybody has an opportunity to talk about whatever they want to talk about. Now, interestingly enough, we had a meeting. And there's always food. Anybody knows me knows I always carry around a couple of tuck bags wherever I go, as such, which is why you've got some tuck at the back of the room. So there's always food as well. And interestingly enough, we had a team meeting yesterday. Our friends in Old Portsmouth now at the bar building hosted it, and then we went across to the Bridge Tavern afterwards for some food. Everyone sat around in a circle. It's a great place to invite guests. I know that we've got some friends in the room that first connected with us by being invited to one of our team meetings. And it just so happens that I've had an email this morning from one of the guests who attended our team meeting yesterday, and without revealing who she is, I just thought I'd read it to you because I think it helps paint the picture. And a great little email to get first thing in the morning with your coffee. Thank you so much for inviting me to the meeting today. I couldn't have left feeling more inspired and excited. I'm very keen to get stuck in. I very much enjoyed my fish finger sandwich too. Please let me know what I should do to sign up for the mediation course. I now have the first half of the course covered for childcare, and I'm confident I can organise the second week too. It was incredibly inspiring to hear about the work of PMS, and I would dearly love to shadow some of your mediators and restorative practitioners. I'm aware that this isn't going to be easy to organise for my part, but I wonder if you have any ideas of how I could become aware of what opportunities there are for this without creating additional work for anyone. I have so many thoughts and questions, but all in all I feel incredibly grateful to have found you. Now that didn't come from a meeting, that came out of a circle time with Portsmouth Mediation Service team who meet, like I say, once a month face to face. It's a meeting that inspires new people for sure, but it's also a meeting that helps us to keep punching beyond our weight. And and it's so liberating for me as well, because I'm part of the circle. I'm part of the team, and increasingly the management function is part of the team. It's no more important than any other role. So we've sort of really been on this journey of turning that pyramid upside down. And I suppose I didn't come neutral back in 2015. You sort of pick up things in various parts of your life. And many years ago, I used to manage a team of self-employed, commission-only salespeople. And you very quickly learn that you don't ever manage a team of self-employed, commission-only salespeople. It's like herding cats. And I found out very quickly that the best way to get the best results was to serve them to be brilliant at what they were doing, to make sure that they had everything that they needed. And I suppose I came into PMS with that philosophy, and then with John, embarking on this restorative journey, we've just continued on this idea of so-called servant leadership, if you like, making sure that our team have the space, the encouragement to be innovative, to be excited about their work, to be empowered to make decisions, to take risks, and know that they're going to be supported as such. And it's not a journey you get there overnight. I mean, I remember when interrupt me, Jonathan, but I remember when I first arrived, people worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, and that. And I just observed that everybody seemed to be taking the phone was ringing, and the people on Tuesday were saying, oh no, she doesn't work on Tuesday, she works on Wednesday, I'll take a message for you. And the people on Wednesday going, no, he doesn't work on Thursday. And so one of the first things I did is I started to treat the team as self-employed salespeople. I got them all business cards, made sure that they're with their own mobile phone. I stopped publicising the office phone number. Make sure your clients phone you, and you can do what you want, when you want, how you want, as long as it's a win for your family and the service. You know, I should say to Laura, and others that had young children, why wouldn't you perhaps take them down the beach on a sunny afternoon and type that report up in the evening and such? But empowering people to run their own business. In fact, Laura it was interesting, very early on in that journey, she said to me one day, "Oh, Steve, if only we had the money, it would be great for us to train primary school children as playground mediators." And as she was talking, I could see that this was inside her, you know, that she really needed to give birth to this as such. And I was like, "Laura, I don't care if we've not got the money, we're going to do it," you know. And so just then the team, discussing that in circle time, and the team picking up her work, you know, volunteering to pick up her cases, to release her, to pioneer something that was history making, if you like. So we just keep developing this idea of restorative leadership. One of the things I did at the office was to throw away 20 years of paper. It was full of filing cabinets. We went electronic, put everything in the cloud. But I started tearing up late folders, all that stuff, all that disciplinary stuff we started to tear up. And when I said to the trustees a while ago, we stopped doing annual appraisals, they fell off their chairs. But that's another conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I think a round of applause.
Thank you.